Okay, we're going to talk about form friction. Um, Essentially, what we do with our clients when we launch ads for our clients is we launch high friction lead generation forms. And consequently, we get high quality leads for our clients because we're requiring the leads to be motivated essentially. All of our lead forms are high intent, conditional logic, starting out with SMS verification. Okay. Um, and I want to show you here, we have a brand new account. Well, it looks like we have a lead coming in here now, finally. Um, but what we're going to look at, I'm going to do a maximum view because we've launched this account with the first lead form. And we're not talking about the other aspects of the ad. Okay. The ads are getting lots of clicks. It looks like people are clicking on the actual ad. When we look at the click through rate, generally speaking, we want it to be over like a 2% or so for our CTR, okay, or around a 2%. It's at a 1.83. CTR all is what we're shooting at. We're shooting for around a 2%, right? For our creative work. As you do more analytics on the creatives, and you look at these, you'll see that generally there are creatives that are going to do better. Okay, as far as click through than others, and those are the ones that we start to focus on as we iterate and create new versions of ads. But generally for around 2%, that's fine. And you can see here we've had 53 clicks and we got our first lead. Okay, we got a lead coming in. So generally speaking, this is going to be less. This is going to be sitting around, close to a 2%. Again, we're looking at a 2% click through, but we're also looking at about a 2% submission rate on clicks. So if we get this initial campaign where we're getting leads, got about 53 clicks, and we divide that out by one lead, or we say one lead divided by 53 clicks, it's a 0.018. Okay, and we round up to a 0.02. So this is actually passing, I would say. Okay, if leads start to come in at about a 2%, like of the people that click on the lead form, if we get a 2% submission rate, that's what we're shooting for on average. So we're doing good. So we have 3 different things we can change in the lead form to remove friction or increase trust. Those are the 2 things we look at, okay? To improve our submission rate, basically. The first thing on friction is there's going to be this utility of friction. The utility of friction is like our SMS verification for phone numbers. Like that's a utility function. That's somebody just putting in a code, right? To verify their phone number. The other thing is the actual submission of the lead form. It needs to be a high intent lead form, right, is what we start out with. We check this here. So if that's checked, one thing we can do out of utility, the first things that we start to do is we first start to change the trust building aspect before we start to change utility. Utility like requiring SMS verification like this here, and then also changing the intent of the form. We try to change those things last. Those are the last things that we change. The conditional logic questions are kind of in the middle. The first thing we want to work on is trust building. So you can see we have a graphic here. Protect your business today. We've got the graphic is the first thing we want to try to adjust to improve things. If we're sitting at like a 2% or lower, if you're not getting any leads coming in at all, you definitely need to change the graphic. And we might even remove some of the friction in the questions. But you have to remove conditional logic questions to remove friction by priority. Okay. So you would have to talk to the CSR and say, hey, it looks like we are getting people clicking on the form. If you see the click-through rate is above a 2%, that means we're doing fine on the ad side and we need to work on the form friction. So the first thing to do is to create a more trustworthy graphic. Okay. Um, and we can see here this graphic. It has kind of a picture of the owner. It says protect your business today, and it's got like 5 stars, right? Well, we need to improve this. If it's not working well, we want to change the imagery from AI image of somebody to an authentic organic picture of the owner. Okay. And we want to have an actual review, which it looks like they did incorporate a review. But the next step to improve trustworthiness is add an organic picture of the owner of the company or their team helping their client or actually working with a client. Then overlay the graphic design of the review and brand it, right? And you would make this request to the CSR. So I'll give you an example. I'll actually go into ClickUp. This is very straightforward. We don't expect you to do the design work. You would just go in. Okay, you have to be specific about this. I'll show you exactly how to do it. You would go to your lead generation client. This is Conscious Counsel. We're going to go to our client workflows for CSR. CSR is the client service rep. And we're going to comment at the CSR in charge here. Actually, we want to look at who's in the subtasks. It looks like it's this person, Jonathan. So we'll do this in media buying, right? We'll go into media buying, and you'll go to your creative testing task. We'll go over here. And in creative testing, I'm going to go ahead and tag both the VA and actually I'll tag the VA as well, because the VA actually does graphic design and the CSR. I'm going to say, please update the client that an initial lead is coming in and we getting traction. Ensure that they are aware of the lead and are ready to follow up with it, as well as know how. This is also important as we launch clients or you're managing client and leads start to come in. Make sure you're communicating with the CSR and telling them. Also, we need this is simply the first step in improving form quality is improve the trustworthiness. We're going to say we need a new graphic for the form like the AI generated one, but instead of the AI person, we need an actual image of the client and or his team helping a customer. We're going to say, but keep the rest of the design the same. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and put a screenshot of it in here, just like this. This image would also need to be formatted in, give them a format. It's 1200 by 628 pixels. It tells us right here in the form. Okay, perfect. Then the other question we're going to ask, we're going to say also ask the client if of the we're going to ask of the questions. Here, let's actually go back into the edit mode to pull the questions. Of the 5 questions we are asking in the form, what is one question? You only remove one question at a time when you're optimizing forms and testing that we might test removing for better submission rates by removing questions for friction. And then I just give them a screenshot of this. Okay. So this is important, basically, to update the team, make that comment so they understand what we're trying to do with optimizing our form. We did the math basically on like our click-through rates are good. They're 2% or higher basically, or close enough within a, point. If it's within a 0.2 deviation, that's fine. We're just starting. We're working on making the ads better. But then at the ad level, if you round up, we are at like a 0.2 submission basically with our first lead coming in. It's indicative that like we're kind of doing okay. But when you look at this form graphic here and you ask, does this build trust with them? Probably sort of. Like there's like a little bit of a review down here. It's got their brand on it, protect your business today. This could be removing the AI person and putting the actual business owner looking in the camera and smiling or helping his customers always improves trust. Just empirically, we know that it works very well. So we're asking for a better trust building graphic is another step we can take to improve upon it. And usually when we're testing that, we're only going to change like one thing at a time on a graphic. That's why I told them keep the rest of the design the same. Let's just add an actual image of the client there. And when they give that to you, you can then create a new form, update it with that, and you may even remove a question that they verify with the client. We could probably remove to create less friction because people are clicking on the form. And then you have to tell them, name the form AE / HI is high intent, CL is conditional logic, and then date it for the new form date so we know which one's the most up to date, like use a naming convention that we're using here. Always require SMS verification within that form when you make it, and high intent lead submission. Like those two utility settings need to be on 100%. Those are the last things that we start to remove as we optimize a lead form. Okay. Those we want to be in place because they actually create better quality leads, better quality phone numbers that people actually pick up if our clients have to call them. Those are really important. But a lot of times, the first thing we can do is improve the trust building nature of the graphic that they see before they move forward as people are opening the lead form. And then when we have a robust amount of friction questions here that are conditional logic, is there a question here that we could maybe remove that the client is saying, we don't really care if they answer question number 3. All right, let's remove that because that will remove friction from the form and might give us a better percentage of actual submission rate of the people that actually open it on click through on the form and on CTR all on the actual ads. Okay. So I hope this is helpful. This is your job, is to analyze what's happening with the lead forms, give feedback, and help optimize them using this priority of optimizations. First is build trust in the graphic, change up the graphic. After you've been doing that, after you're testing and you're still not really getting results after a week or so of advertising, you're not seeing like the rate get better, the submission rate of the form, start removing high friction questions. If you're getting down to only like one or two like required questions, that the client is like, yeah, make sure you're asking these. Then we start like removing SMS verification. And then we may even change the submission from high intent to high volume on the lead form submission. The actual utility of how the form gets submitted is like the last things that we change, so that we're continuing to get high quality leads. So, and sometimes this process can take like a month or two as we're optimizing. And we may end up with like 3, 4, 5 different types of lead forms. Could take a month and you could end up with 6 different kinds if you're changing up this graphic a lot. But that graphic is very important. This graphic actually does matter a lot. The position of that testimonial can matter, like having it up at the top can do a lot better. Getting rid of these white spaces. You really do want to talk to the CSR about this and doing different versions of this. Using organic images of the client and their team works really well. And having usually like a 5-star review with a testimonial and using that overlay graphic in a way that represents like Google, like an actual Google review overlay, and the actual company, like if it was a Trustpilot review or something like that. All right, thanks. Okay, so I just want to follow up on this here. We decided to go ahead and update the lead form for this client to make it more trustworthy by using an organic image of the client looking into the camera smiling. We start out with this like AI image because we just, we got to get the forms launched, and sometimes it takes a little bit to get like collateral from the client. And we needed like an overlay of a testimonial, but we could see here that it's hard to see it. We have these white bars on either side. It's not that great. So we wanted to update the creative to look more trustworthy with an organic image, make sure that the testimonial in 5 stars is very clear and we can read it. It's very prevalent, and we want the whole graphic to be used. So the CSR followed up with the client and also asked, hey, which questions can we remove on the lead form? Like, is there a question on here that's not that important that we could go ahead and remove? So the client got back with us with some images to help update the graphic, and then also said, hey, remove the third question. Removing the third question. So you need to update the form with the graphic and removing a question so that we're getting more lead form submissions basically. So you got to go to Meta Business Suite. This is how you do it as the CSR, and then you would update the media buyer. You're going to go into Meta Business Suite. You go to all tools basically, and you're going to go to the lead form or instant form under manage. Okay. Sometimes it takes a second, and then you have to select the right page. So you go over here. We want conscious counsel is the client. Here we are. Okay, so here's our current lead form. All right, and it's easy for you to do this actually as the CSR, and then update the media buyer. So we have our form here. If we click create form, we're going to duplicate an existing form and duplicate off of the old one because we want to keep it pretty much the way it is and just change these few things on it. So of course, we want to make sure we've got it set up. as a standard, we always require leads to submit their phone number. Sometimes it unchecks that when you duplicate the form, so make sure that that's checked, that we're requiring SMS verification. We want high intent. That's all good. It's on optimized flexible form delivery. We'll go next. Okay, so here's where we're going to be able to replace the image. So let's go back to ClickUp. We got the new image from the VA. That's updated here. We'll download that. And it should show up perfectly because we've redesigned it. It should be in the 1200 by 628 format. Looks like it is. It's showing up very nicely. We can see there's that 5-star review, protect your business today. In the preview, sometimes it looks a little bit pixelated, but it'll be fine. And we can see it says 1200 by 628. So we should be good to go there. We're going to leave all the copy and everything the same because that's all working. And then the third question is what they're saying, what the client said they wanted to remove. This is where you have to really pay attention as a CSR, like where we ask, hey, is there a conditional logic question we could remove to remove friction to get more form submissions? We're going to remove this third one is what they're asking. We're going to delete that. Okay. Now, you don't always necessarily just go with whatever the client says. Generally, we want to keep questions that are requirements for the client. Like usually there might be a revenue requirement. They might have a service area where it's like, hey, are you in this service area? Do you own a home? Something like that, like where they have to have that requirement to work with them. And those are the conditional logic questions we definitely want to keep. Okay, then we're just going to kind of double check everything. On the question side of things, sometimes that changes. You have to double check the logic on them and make sure that the logic is correct. Okay, so right here where it says, do you currently generate at least 50K a year in revenue? The answer is yes. You just go to the next question, which is 3. If it's no, it's already set to end the page. So sometimes when you remove a question from like the middle of everything, you have to kind of go through it again and make sure that the conditional logic still is good. So now it's okay. Now it's good to go. And we got the privacy policy there, the review section. Then we've got the ending page for leads. Redirects them to the website, which is great. They get more information. Awesome. Now, we want to go back to form type and rename it before we get too carried away here. We're going to delete the copy word and then delete that old date of 08/26/25. This is actually 09-18-2025. So we know that this is a new lead form because it's the most up-to-date one. That's why we use a dating format in our naming convention for forms. We'll go back to the end. Now we can create the form. We've made the changes. It's all good. Okay. Now you actually have to update this in GoHighLevel as well. So you would have to go into GoHighLevel and update the form. Okay, so with the new form being created, you do need to go into GoHighLevel and update it so that the leads coming from the new form are flowing into the client's CRM properly. Or if they have like a Zapier automation or something like that, because sometimes changing the form will actually change that. Sometimes you can adjust your automation so that leads flow into a client's CRM, no matter what form they use, and that's preferred. But sometimes you have to go in and check that. So always, always, always check this, okay? That should be something you're familiar with, and if you're not, it's pretty easy to find help articles and GoHighLevel on how to do that. Or most CRMs, like if the client's using another CRM that we help them with, or you may just need to tell the client's team, hey, there's a new lead form and here it is. This is what it's called basically. Okay, and then you need to update the media buyer. So in this case, that would be like me. I'll just give you an example here. You'd tag the media buyer like me, Chris. The new lead form is updated and live for the client. Here is the naming convention. Or you can actually just say the naming convention is today's date. The naming convention is today's date, 09-18-2025. Easy peasy. Then the media buyer knows, because then the media buyer needs to go in and update all the forms on the ads. Okay, with this new optimized form that has a better trust building graphic, we removed an unnecessary question to reduce friction. Now that we see there's leads coming in, we're kind of optimizing this form so we get better results for them. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Thanks.